Welcome back, loving audience, to episode 6 of Average Andies. We decided to do a little pop up episode to talk about a lot of things like end of expansion, a recap of the expansion, why season 4 is good and bad, and then obviously a lot about the war within, at least from the limited knowledge we have. And I don't think we've dug too deep into the actual what's going on there, but it felt like the right time. We killed Fire. I don't know, 2 months ago, a month, 2 months ago. When did we kill
Um,
it?
uh, Probably like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about that, and Amir Gisel's like, it's come and go, so there won't be a lot on that. But I think at least to start season 4, it's a lot different than it was in Shadowlands. I think they made a lot of good improvements with things like how dinars work and how you upgrade gear as opposed to in Shadowlands with how
hmm
that all worked. But I think what we should really start with is the premiere content of season 4, which is obviously faded raids or awakened
Awakened, yeah.
raids. Um, and we can both give our opinion on those. We've cleared every week. We've done heroic, like full clears, and we've been doing normal. I don't think we did it this week,
No, we
but
didn't.
did the first 2 weeks, and then we've done mythic to the extent possible, which is well, in the beginning we didn't have high expectations, and then I think this week it just didn't go as well as we planned. But overall, I think both of us talked about this at some point in like a prior episode where we just wanted the raids to be the raids that are tuned up, and that is what they gave us. So, how do you feel about awakened raids, and how much fun have you been having in these 3 weeks?
So I will say I definitely like the Awakened raids much more than the Faded raids. I really did not like the affixes at all, and I like that they nerfed the Awakened raids by 10 additional percent. I think I think it was 10%. Anyway, they definitely nerfed all raids like across the board, which I liked. I wish they made them like a little easier, but I kind of like where they're at right now. Like we went into Abris and cleared up to like Magmarax, and I was pretty surprised, but like to be honest, it was actually like pretty easy doing Abris. Like you said, Vault the first week we were super undergeared, so like our expectations were low. And then last week in Amir Dashil, yeah, like we definitely just kind of like shit the bed on some of the bosses. But overall, I've been enjoying it. I think more so, I definitely enjoying it more than Faded rating at least, and I think more so just because I'm like doing something new. So like instead of like DPSing, I'm trying to like learn how to heal, and I actually think that's probably why I'm enjoying it the most, just because I'm like doing something I've never really like done before, at least like in modern WoW. I've healing like classic WoW and back when I played when I was like a kid, but I've never like really healed in modern retail, so I think that's why I'm like mostly enjoying it. At least so far, it's just like learning something new. I had to like reconfigure my UI because my UI was dog shit, and I'm still like working on that. But yeah, it's just all kind
Mm-hmm.
of like new to me and like learning timings and stuff, and I kind of like how I have this season to do that as well instead of like God, if I and I'll just throw it out there. I'm not good. So if I like was doing this in like a real tier, I'd be like obviously like hindering the guild. So I like that there's not like a lot of pressure on it. But at the end of the day, I still wish we got like a fourth raid instead of a faded season, if that makes sense. But
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the tuning is pretty good. We're not, I don't think since the first week, and even Taros we should have killed. We just
yeah, we
just didn't because of silly little mistakes and stuff. But
could have
the
made
tuning
no.
overall has been good. Even the first week, it felt, yeah, exactly. But the first week, it just felt, obviously you're going in with a lot of your old gear. You're like, a lot of people are in the 490s, and it's just, or even lower. So
hmm
it just felt bad. And Taros is still an awesome boss because of that. Like, it's still so fun to do when you're under geared, because it's actually a hard fight to beat the damage check on, but it's like simple mechanically, or simple, yeah, simple
Yeah,
mechanically, which was awesome. But then since then, it's just been, I do have fun, and I'm playing a different spec than I played in any of the tiers, which is fun too, just because it's not the same as role swapping in terms of engagement and learning new stuff, but
it's still
still fun to just
different.
like
Yeah,
revisit the fights as a different spec and stuff. And obviously, we have a ton of people doing that, which obviously probably contributes obviously to like how far
yeah,
we get in these
performance and
raids.
stuff. Yeah,
And we're also, but it is nice, like you said, to just be able to re-clear the content. There's no gimmicks like the affixes were in Faded, and you just get to kind of go through it, and there's no pressure. I do to some degree miss like the feeling of Prague though, and like actual progression.
yeah.
That's the most fun part of rating. Obviously, like no one would do it if it wasn't. And so there's not a lot to do, or there's not a lot of feeling of accomplishment even when you clear it. exclusively doing it for gear, which also is kind of weird because the only reason you need gear is if you are someone I think who tries to do Mythic Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think I bet a lot of people like it though, just being able to revisit stuff and have all the OP items because now everything from every tier is unlocked. So all the trinkets, and then when evokers have their legendary, plate wearers have their legendary. It's just that part is fun, and I do enjoy it. But I I don't know. I'm giving it like a soft to mid like 6 in terms of enjoyment from a rating experience. It's been kind of fun, but I think we'll start hitting that same point we did in Shadowlands pretty quickly, where people are just like, this isn't that fun anymore, and you know,
So,
don't know what they could really do about that though.
what I do really like about it though, it's like this is like the epitome of like it's actually just like chill tier. Like
Oh yeah,
I'm like I don't really care that we only killed like 4 bosses or 5 bosses, whatever, last week. I don't really care that we like couldn't kill terrorists week 1. You know, it's like it's definitely chill tier. On like a scale from 1 to 10, I would actually give it like an 8 for me. But like I said, that's just because I'm like learning something new. But honestly, if I was playing like a Boomy or a Rep Pal, yeah, I would probably give it like a 4 or at most like a 5. Like you know, it's definitely like kind of mid, especially if you're playing like the
yeah.
same like class and role. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I was playing like the same thing I played earlier in the expansion, even with like a different tier set, I guess I still just don't think it would be that fun.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. It's like yeah, especially role swapping.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think I'd have fun if I was tanking, but yeah, like I think I'd feel the same way if I was like switching to healer because it's just a completely different approach to raiding and stuff.
Mhm.
One thing I think they could have done that would have been cool, and I don't know if they figured it would trivialize the raids or whatever. I wish you could just go to any boss you wanted. Like there was just someone you could talk to and they
Yeah.
port you to the boss room or something or like whatever. Because for example, and maybe this isn't the best because it drops such a good trinket, but like obviously Forgotten Experiments is like a big no-no for us. We don't like doing it. We suck at doing it. It's a miserable experience killing that boss. Even back in Aberrus when we were reclearing for the ninth
Oh
time or
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
it's just not a fun fight because we're just bad at it. But I feel like a lot of people have those fights in their head where you just don't enjoy doing it. You just don't think the boss is any fun. And on top of that, there's just especially in Aberrus, there's just
There's
so
like
many
three
bosses that have like
bosses like
no good.
that.
Yeah, and there's just no like none of them drop good loot either. Forgotten Experiments is the only one that you do where it really feels actually worth
Yeah, the
like
an
the
annoying boss that's like worth
semblance of
killing.
effort you have to
Yeah.
put. Yeah, like Skarn is horrible, but you have to kill it if you don't have the skip. You get to Magmarex and it drops nothing.
Mhm.
Like even back then, the bomb dispenser was really good for melee, but that's not good
I mean, it
anymore when
doesn't
all
even
the
matter
trinkets are
because you can just
unlocked.
buy everything now, right? It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
just let us like go into a raid and just like pick which fun bosses we want to kill to fill our vault, right?
Yeah, and that'd be cool if they did that for like the re-release or just like the full release rather of turning oh my god, I
Oh,
can't talk.
and
All
like
raids to awaken if they just like added someone you could just port to bosses and stuff and
yeah.
I think that'd be way more fun. So you could actually just do the stuff that you think is fun slash the easy bosses that still do drop good loot. Like, I would like that a lot, but that's the only thing I can really think of they could do to make it better. Other than that, it's just the same experience for everyone. Like, if you did all 3 raids during the expansion, none of this is new. There's no sense of progression because no one cares about faded rank or sorry, awakened ranks.
Mhm.
And so that experience overall, like rating, I do enjoy it. Our guild's still fun. I just love playing with everyone, but the actual fights, I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
the
like
biggest
we've done
fan
them
of.
already.
We've
Yeah,
done the ones,
I'm
yeah.
curious as to when we'll hit that wall where it's like, all right, people are kind of over this. I mean, Mappa's coming out this week, but I don't think that many people are as interested in as I thought. I think only like a couple people are interested in that, and even then, I don't really know what the extent is. It's just like a leveling thing. It's like, you know, how much fun can you have doing that
Yeah,
stuff? So I'm just curious,
yeah,
like when
leveling and transmog, yeah.
yeah, because
No,
I think in Faded, I actually think we just did like one rotation, and then I think we did like Nathru one more time, and then I actually think we like stopped like after week 4. But I was also like on vacation, and I don't know if that's why we stopped. But I just remember coming back from vacation and we like weren't rating anymore. So I'm just
yep.
like wondering when we'll kind of hit that wall
Yeah, and I don't
this time.
imagine it's like that far. It'll probably be after the next like once the all raids are unlocked cycle's done, and
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people would just. I mean, you could probably still get people around
I
to
mean, you
try to
could,
do
but you,
bosses and stuff,
yeah, you
but
could actually just go and like do like, how many do you need to fill a vault? Like 7? You do like
6, I think it is
you do
again
like for
because of
222, like really
yeah.
like in an hour or something, just fly to each different raid.
True.
Yeah, people might be interested in that actually. Um, Another thing I was gonna add is like we I, I think one reason we're struggling as well is like also because I'm like learning, like I'm actually just like not talking in raid because it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
I can't. I'm just not there yet, So I feel like we would have like killed Forgotten Experiments like way quicker if that, I was able to talk. And I know we killed Scar in like 4 pulls, but Council was like another one. Like if I was on like a DPS, I probably would make better call outs. But honestly, we just kind of like dropped the ball on Council. But I think that's just like another reason why we didn't do as well on some of the fights this time around.
Yeah, and I think the underlying point is that they definitely the season 4 idea is not fun in reality. I think it gets stale really quickly unless you're someone who enjoys pushing keys, and that's the only real form of replayability that's engaging or just difficult to do or gives you any sense of reward. So obviously their solution to that, I don't know how. I feel like most people aren't happy with the reality of the situation of like making expansion cycles shorter. That just basically means you get less content per expansion,
Yeah.
which has been, I don't know, a lot of people have already discussed this and like what it means. But obviously, it will get rid of this lull period that exists and has existed in expansions for a really long time, which is probably a good thing. But and I'm not going to get into the technicals of like you're paying the same amount of money for less overall content. Because in reality, that's probably not even true in reality. Because you think of most expansions, I think Legion's probably the only outlier. And Antorus was still out for a while. There was just so much content in that expansion, so many raids and stuff, things to
Yeah.
do that you didn't really ever feel that way. But if you think of like Mop, like Siege of Orgrimmar was out forever,
Yeah,
like
it's like
almost a
14
year, I think,
months.
or
Yeah,
over
I
a
think it
year.
was
Yeah,
14
and then
months.
same thing like WAD, you had like Hellfire Citadel was out forever, um, and even Legion and Taurus was out for a very long time before BFA dropped, and it goes on and on and for like Nihilith was out forever. So Faded probably is the best middle ground for how expansions were as opposed to what they are now if they're doing the same like 3 year cycle. But yeah, definitely could have been uh
And I
I don't know.
I personally think they probably won't do this again.
No, they won't.
Because they're gonna make the expansions release quicker, so we won't have like that extra
Exactly.
like 6 months or whatever. So, but
Yeah, and then
sorry, go ahead.
the next season 4 thing is obviously the other only half for PvE players is Mythic Plus, and I I think this season would have been a good time for them to. Well, okay, so first of all, I think the rework they did to key levels and how
Oh,
affixes are
so good,
incorporated
dude.
in is very good. Yeah, very
So
good
good.
because it actually makes, in theory, it should make Mythic Zeros more difficult moving forward, which is cool. And also, it's really nice to only deal with one affix, like, and it's typically
Mm-hmm.
the easier affix when you're just like farming gear because to every season there is a key you need to farm for a trinket or like the little weapon that has the extra effect or whatever it is.
Something,
Everyone
yeah.
always has to do it, and it's always a pain early season when you have to like, and if you want either the highest item level or the good vault slots to do those keys, especially if it's a bad week, which I feel like the beginning of the season, some reason it's almost always bad weeks. Like one of the first 2 weeks is typically really bad combo with fixes. Like this time it was fortify bolstering,
Yep.
which on its own is terrible, but bolstering didn't kick in until after 10, and so you could just do all the keys with whatever the other fix was, like entangling or something,
Yeah.
and it was super easy.
Wait, that was
So
week
that
two. That
rework,
was week two.
yeah, week 2. I know, but that's one of the first 2 weeks is typically really
I feel
bad.
like
So I'm
week one
saying,
was
so like,
bad too, though. I don't remember. It was
wasn't it?
storming, I think. Storming
No, yeah, it was like
tyrannical.
storming, maybe storming raging. I think it was,
Yeah, it
which
was
is a push
raging.
week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for what I think most keyers would
Well,
consider that a push week.
I mean, yeah, that was like I did right before we started this. I did like an 8 to finish my vault. After like doing tens all weekend or whatever, I was like, dude, I like hate Spiteful so much. And like into the 8, we do like the first one Algathar, and I was like, oh shit, there's no Spitefuls. It's like awesome. I could just do this to
Yep.
build my vault, and not have to worry about the dumb affix.
Yeah. So that and hopefully they keep this moving forward. Like that's actually going to be how it works now.
Mhm.
Awesome change.
Mhm.
Really love that. Um, but I do still think if they're going to have rotational dungeons that switch every season, the need for affixes goes down more and more. And I understand that it will make things feel kind of stale, but I think adding a fun seasonal, like, and I don't know why they're so opposed to Kiss Curse affixes or just like seasonals. But like everything, everyone who played season 4 loved that seasonal fix. It was really really
And
fun.
season three, they had two
Um,
back-to-back bangers.
yeah, and yeah, that one was really good too. But season 4 was also unique because it added percent. Like the mobs are actually worth
Yeah,
count, and
yep,
so it changed. You could be creative with how you routed dungeons based on are you killing the big guy or are you only killing some little ones? Because obviously you wanted to be as efficient as possible. The big guy took forever, but there were some dungeons where it was just more worth it to kill him because it was
yep.
bad trash. Like Kara was a good example of that. And so that kind of thing, I wish they explored more and got rid of affixes. I'd be much more content with a seasonal affix and one affix per week if we have to keep them than the two affix thing
Well,
because
I don't think Sang or not Sanguine, Tyrannical and Fortified are going anywhere. So like, I feel like those will
yeah,
like
and I'm fine
always.
with that honestly. I actually don't hate
And
Tyrannical versus
to be
Fortified.
honest with you, that does give you like some variance week to week. Like the dungeons like definitely feel better on the Tyrannical in 4 weeks. Not now whether or not that's like a good feeling how it's set up, but
Yeah.
it definitely feels different, you know, from week to week with Tyrannical and Fortified alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that it just, and that's what I mean is that that alone plus new dungeons, and I think having a seasonal would make it way more engaging because the thing that sucks, especially if you're trying to push keys, is that um, one, you need a set group if you're actually trying to go anywhere far because you're just gonna, if you pug, regardless of how good of people you get, you like the chemistry part or just learning from mistakes that you've done previously and getting around them and communication is always going to be an issue. So you have to deal with that. And then there could be a week where someone in your group is, they're out for the week. They have to do something related to their real life for whatever reason. It could be work. It could be, just like a vacation. And if it's on like a push week, you're just setting yourself like massively far behind, especially as it gets to like the late stage of the season where
Yeah.
there's kind of a limit to the level of key you can do. But you like, and they're only honestly doable
On that easy
on
week.
those
Yeah.
easy weeks. Yeah. Or you just like the other fixes are so much time loss that you can't really do it. So that just doesn't feel like a good gameplay loop to me. It made more sense when dungeons stayed the same for the whole 2 or 3 years the expansion was out, but
Yeah.
now I just feel that it's like a really dated, boring concept. I don't enjoy like bolstering as any role. It's just dumb that like your tank just has to play like the RNG parry roulette to stay in, or they just have to constantly run. And there's a lot of specs I don't like it when mobs are moving and stuff. Like it's just boring to me at this point. And
Well,
I feel like a good revamp of Mythic Plus would be have more engaging fixes that rewarded you throughout the dungeon.
do you prefer how they do it now with the rotating dungeons, or did you like the like 2 years of the same dungeons but
Oh,
different
I
seasons?
definitely I love the rotating dungeons because I
Yeah.
think um and we've talked about this a lot. I hated keys up until the end of or Shadowlands because I just didn't like doing them. I think they are like super repetitive, boring content, and also a lot of that was every season I was like spamming plague falls in the beginning, which I
Yeah.
already didn't like as a dungeon, but I had to do a ton of them to get that like the trinket that was good for melee DPS and the weapon, the Poxstorm weapon,
Yep.
and that made me just hate the dungeons even more, or just like the whole process of doing Mythic Plus. And I really like the beginning of seasons when it's not the same old stuff that you've done for the last like year and a half now, and you actually are figuring out new things in dungeons. Like you kind of have actually agency in what's good. There's not just like that set meta because by the end of the season there's a right way to do everything,
Yeah, of
at least
course.
for like the 99.99% of even like key doers, not even just like the
Yeah,
whole
they're just
population. Like there's
copying
everything's been
routes.
figured
Yeah.
out, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but in the beginning, even when you're doing your little trying to just see how far you like how high you can go for your vault, you're still like trying to figure things out as a group and stuff, and you're learning a lot. Even though it's like really hard, it's that same sense of like rewarding. You're not just like bricking the same key you've been doing for a year and a half. So I love the seasonal rotation in dungeons.
Yeah, I even liked I was like very like against like, oh man, I gotta do these 8 Dragonflight dungeons again, but I honestly like I really like the dungeons from season 1. And I mean, some of them from season 2 aren't even like as bad as I like remembered. I guess I feel like I like the season 1 Dragonflight dungeons more for sure, but I was like surprised that it was like kind of a breath of fresh air getting those back. Well, especially also like they made all those changes, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of like another point. It's like why couldn't they make these in season 1? It's like we got a season of these and like now they're so much better. Like, you know, we could have had them for a second like in season 2 with these changes, or like why can't they just make the changes in season 1? But like with the changes like the halls and stuff, like and what else did they change? Like the last boss on Azure Vault, it's like so much better than what it used to be. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's like they do that purposefully, like they know the changes that they want to make, but they're just holding off because they know they're gonna put it into season four. Or if that's just like something that's like an afterthought to them.
Yeah, and I will also say this expansion was plagued by it really bad, and Shadowlands was also by the end of the X-Pack, but um, this whole like the meta comps that keep popping up, they did so good in the first two seasons until AUG came
Og,
out,
yeah.
but until that happened, they were really, really good at season one. You could play anything, even in the highest keys. People were playing a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Season two in the beginning, there was a ton of DPS that were viable. There was multiple healers that were viable, and then it kind of came down to like Vengeance Demon Hunter or Guardian Druid. But since AUG came out, and I don't even think it's exclusively AUG's fault. Like AUG will always be very good in keys because of what it does,
Yeah.
but uh, I do wish they were a little bit, excuse me, more proactive about balancing for around keys and actually addressing why things are so good and not just uh, like slight number tuning. And what I'm really getting at is that right now Shadow Priest and Mage are the clear like two best DPS specs to pair with AUG, and it's not just because they do really good damage. Shadow Priest is probably the highest DPS output in keys right now, but Mage is not. It's not even better than a lot of what else the other things you could substitute in for it, but it's super strong defensively, and so is Shadow Priest. Um, and that, especially when you actually are trying to push keys, is like super lame. And I'll give an example. I'm playing Evoker, and I walked into like a 15 Oku defensive and on Tyrannical, and the first boss just killed me with AoE when I didn't have skills, like my defensive up.
Yeah.
And okay, so like yes, especially if you're trying to push the highest keys where you're like getting super sweaty about it, you have like and you've mapped out like your defensive rotation to deal with that stuff. Like that is a mechanic of doing like really high tyrannical keys, but like a 15 is high, but it's not that high. And the fact that there's such a defensive difference between something like Devastation Evoker and then Mage, which has one button that's better than Devastation's whole defensive kit,
Yeah.
is like that's lame. And
Well,
so
the
I
re
think they should do more about that. And I hope Hero Talents do fix it, but there needs to be like another. They need to take a look at how valuable defensives can be for
yeah,
like
they
specs and keys.
they need to just like the reason I mean the reason all and correct me if I'm wrong, like Og Og is like good damage dealer, but like it's not if you could put another class in there to replace Og to do more damage, right? Like it's not like Og
Way
is
more, yeah, way
yeah,
more,
you bring them for the defensive value they bring the team, and that's like the issue
yeah,
with keys right now. It's like the higher you go, you just need to be able to live, and like Og is the only class that's able to like keep you alive like that. And like Shadow Priest obviously helps like whatever the hell it's called, Vampiric Embrace,
and
but
base, yeah,
it's like you just bring an Og to live. Like I don't
yep,
know, and I don't know when that like changed where everything became so one-shotty. I feel like it was like last season, or like maybe even season two, but I just feel like, you know, these guys are already doing level 20s because they can live. Like, it's like I liked keys when they were like figuring out how to push higher by like pulling more packs together and like more dangerous pulls, like coordinating more with like stuns and interrupts and stuff, and seeing like how much bigger you can pull. But now it's like just all about like playing it safe, and that's like definitely because you have AUG, like you can just you can go higher, more higher than you possibly will without AUG. It's just like they just add like way too much value to the group. And I mean, do you prefer that?
yeah.
Like, do you prefer where like the limiting factor in keys is living, or do you prefer like, yeah, we need to do more damage to time this thing?
I definitely think that my dog's barking, but I think that I don't like this one shoddy meta, and I don't like the whole like AUG is the key to survival thing. Um, it's really boring as the AUG evoker, and it's just boring as I think for the whole group, and I think it should be a lot more focused on what you were saying.
Yeah,
Um,
and as like a healer, it's like somebody will die, and I'm just like, I I don't even know like what happened. I'm like, did I fuck up? Did they just like not pop a personal? Like this guy just got one shot from like 92% health. Like, I guess I should have topped him. Like I just I'm not expecting this guy to get one shot from 92% health. He doesn't use a defensive. It's like I don't know. It feels bad as a healer sometimes if like when somebody just falls over and you feel like it's your fault, but then it's like nothing you could really do. I guess it's just weird.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think like that's the problem with the way a lot of it's tuned. I don't know if you could ever fix it with Tyrannical because there's always going to be bosses that just have the thing that Og does that's so good is that it can well one it can spend a lot more time than other classes just focusing on
Yeah.
like being supportive, but it also like when you press your defensive, it's basically like a mini rally, and there actually are a ton of mechanics and keys where it's literally about living by like 5k or 10k
Yeah.
HP.
Yep. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's like I mean you play AUG, but it's like very boring. No. I mean I'm sure it's more fun in keys, but than raid, but I can't imagine it's like more fun than
Yeah,
an
and I
actual
I think
DPS class.
there are a ton of people who do like that, like the support esque
Yeah.
play style. The thing that makes Og annoying to me and harder keys is that your whole play style is just monitoring what the rest of the group's doing,
Hmm.
and you're also squishy, contrary to what people believe. You still are an evoker, and you have to like spend a ton of time focusing on living, which isn't fun.
Yep.
But like all I'm doing is waiting for my Shadow Priest to hit PI, and it's like boring. Especially as someone who is like relatively selfish and has like a selfish mindset and likes doing damage.
Yeah.
I
I mean
don't hate it because I
that's
like timing keys,
that's the most
but
fun shit in the game. Just pulling big and just absolutely destroying the meters, right?
yeah, and that's what like that's my favorite part about the game. And
Yeah.
I wish I could play Devastation because it is so good in keys at like doing overall damage, especially on fortified. But you're just actually hard capped by the fact that you just die to everything. And you don't have that extra 10% survivability that Og has from the HP part. You don't have a cheat death. You can take like you have to take rescue shield as a dev. You don't have to give up too much, but you have to give up at least something in that tree that Og doesn't care about because it's like damage oriented. But it's like there's like a plus 4%. It's a 2 point node like magic damage dealt node,
Yeah.
and Og just doesn't care if you have to drop both of those because your damage is so bad. Like all it is buffing the rest of the group. Um, and that's just silly. Like it's yeah, Og just and you also Og is like permanently giving everyone like 20% versatility whenever they cast an empowered spell and stuff, which is just 10% DR2. And yeah, like how much of that value added it isn't that fun. And I almost wish they could kind of rework it in a way that honestly I just think a lot of the survivability aspects of it should be taken out. I don't know if that could be in favor of like being able to choose more to heal or something like that, but it's just too it's too much of a staple. They also just don't make keys this season. Is like the Dragonflight dungeons. It's way more about surviving than like meeting a damage check, like just completing the key in time,
Yeah,
um,
it's
which
been
makes
like
Og way more
that. It's been
viable.
like that. I feel like since like AUG is out, and I don't know if that's like an AUG problem or like what. Like, were we just not able to push higher because we could never live them earlier, or I don't know. It's just weird how it's like suddenly an issue all of a sudden.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't like that. I hope they change it. I hope they find a way to make other specs like they just need to do more, pay more attention to why some things are so viable in keys. And because it's again like mage's damage
I
is
just
not
you can't.
that
I'm
crazy.
just thinking about it, and I love Mage. Like the amount of defensives they have, and you're always playing fire, right? Like,
Yeah,
and it's just like you have a cheat death, you got barrier, you got mass barrier, you got invis, you got mirror images, you got alter time. It's like, dude, what are we doing here? You got ice block. I'm probably forgetting some other things too, but
exactly.
it's like
It's just
ridiculous. And
not.
then you go on like Boomy and you got like bark skin and bear form where you can't even fucking do DPS in it. It's like, what are we doing
Yep.
here, man?
Yeah, it's just and I think that's where they've missed the mark a lot with like balancing dungeons is they just don't really think about how much value the spec is adding overall to all of the factors that contribute to you being able to
Yeah.
complete like a high level key.
Yeah, they just look at the
Because if it was damage
numbers.
alone, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, they just look at the
Like then
numbers.
devastation would just be better than Og, but Og just brings way too much group utility and survivability. And Dev is like on par with most of the top DPS specs at doing damage. It just you just fall over,
Just doesn't have that
which is
utility,
just
yeah.
so lame. Yeah, it's just so boring to have to like play that much around it. So hopefully, like, and I think hero talents are a great way to do that, or just reworking some talents in the tree to give them more defensive value. And that's true for a lot of specs. Like They just need to, I think, look at
I
that
think they
more.
just need,
But
yeah, I think they just need to get rid of a bunch of defensives. Like there's
or yeah,
there's
or just equalize it
yeah,
more.
there's no need for I feel like Priest is like good. They have like a self heal, a fade, and like dispersion and shadow. Like they have like three, and I feel like that's like a good number. Like same with
Yeah, and
like
they just have that like overhealing to that overhealing shield that you take. I can't
yeah
remember what it's
yeah
called, like mental fortitude.
yeah
And
whatever
then they can like flash heal for the DR. They have fade. That's like a super short cooldown,
yeah.
and it's only like what, a 10% DR, but that's
It's
enough.
still enough, and it's short enough
Yeah,
cooldown. Yeah.
with that buffer on your HP that you get from like the huge shields,
Hmm.
and you can like power word shield yourself too, which they
Yeah.
I think do a lot. And then obviously disperse is just basically an immunity. So yeah, so priest is just survivable enough to never really die
But
to
they
the
don't.
one
Yeah, but
shotty
they don't feel. Yeah,
mechanics.
they're not like overly tanky like mages. I feel.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean mage has ice
Like
block,
you have to
alter,
like yeah
mirror
you have to
images,
like
barrier, mass barrier.
you have to like be proactive as like a priest to survive. Whereas mage, it's like I feel like a lot of their stuff is like reactive, except for like maybe alter time or something.
Yeah, so hopefully they do fix that in the War Within. I don't hate Og as a spec. I think Og is cool. I think the idea of it's cool. I obviously don't enjoy playing it very much because it's not what I like doing the most in the game. It's just not, and it's not really my play style. Like there's never been a game I've played where there was a support role and I ever played it.
Hmm.
So it's just like, but there are a ton of people who really do enjoy that kind of thing. And
Oh,
so
for
I
sure.
just hope
Yeah.
they just need to incorporate it more into a way that makes it healthier for the meta Mythic Plus. And it'd be a lot more like it'd fit into the ecosystem a lot better. But right now it's just a mandatory slot because surviving is above all, and it's tough and it
What
sucks that
if what if
it's that way.
so what if they had like five or six? How many healers are there? Six in tanks, like six or something like that. So what if they had like
Something like that, yeah.
five or six support specs or classes or whatever, and then dungeons were six people. So you always brought a tank, a healer, a support, and three DPS.
Yeah, that could work. Then they'd have to, I think, to do stuff like that, they'd have to like require you to go into the dungeon with a
Yes,
set amount of those roles,
absolutely,
like
yeah.
any other game.
Hmm.
But that I that probably would be fine, and obviously adding an extra person would open up a ton of options for like the meta, but also that might get a lot harder for them to tune dungeons to be difficult because
Yeah,
adding a whole nother
yeah.
spec would
I
like
don't think it would
the
ever
extra
work,
utility
but
you get.
yeah. That or like I don't know. They should have like choice nodes for AUG. Like you either like run survivability shit or you can run like damaging shit or damage increasing shit. And like one's more like a DPS support role and the other one like queues as like a healer support role kind of thing. Like you know how they like
Yeah,
4 DPS keys? Like
yeah,
the AUG could just be like a healer support and like take the role of the healer instead.
yeah,
Maybe.
and I think they should just shift away like the power that Og has from adding defensiveness to something like you said, like make them able to heal more or that kind of thing. So make it less about how they are so good at helping the group avoid one shot checks
Mhm.
and just make them more an augment per their name to what the healer is able to do. Like give them specific spells because in Mythic Plus you're always buffing the healer because that's how Evan Might works. It goes on your four closest people.
Yeah.
But in Raid, I think it would also make it way more engaging in Raid if
Oh
you could.
yeah, I think
There was
so
like as
too.
opposed to just like you actually had abilities you pressed on healers to help like to juice them, or there was healing abilities you had in your kit that weren't as powerful as an actual Raid CD, but could maybe get through some of the lulls
Yeah,
and healing CDs or something.
like Heart of the Wild kind of thing. Like you just pop that like every minute, like during this hard damaging amp, and you do whatever that move is, like Verdant Embrace, and you just like it does like a not a huge heal, but it, like takes the rate from like 50% to like 70%, like this 20% on everybody, like something like that,
Yeah,
instead of what they have now.
exactly. Yeah, and then just like take away the power they're adding to other DPS to maybe make them do more damage on their own. Like that's an option too, but just give it. It just does too much at once right now, and it creates this like boring gameplay loop. And I think AUG as a spec, like the playability of it and its rotation and what's important, could be a lot more fun if there was a little bit more self responsibility on how you were playing and it wasn't just like you're buffing these people and they're doing all your damage. Like I just think there's ways they could explore the support role in WoW a lot more interestingly, and it also helped clean up some of the reasons that they're a permanent staple in the meta. for doing any form of high keys because it's just
I mean, not even high keys. Like I know season four, we're not running any augs, but like you're gonna need two augs unless they change them in raid on Prague, right?
yep.
Like you're just always gonna need that unless they like fundamentally change how they work or like they change like how raid buffs work or something. But yeah, I mean, they gotta do something, I think. But I guess that's up to them.
Yeah. And we'll see, but I guess we kind of we've explored a lot, and I could talk about it forever because after playing it like a decent amount now this season, I have a ton of things I do not like about it, but whatever. I don't want to beat on the dead horse or anything. So, um, the next thing obviously we want to talk about is the War Within, and I don't know how much do you know about the expansion, like what they're adding and what
I
it's gonna be.
I know they're adding hero talents. I know about two hero talents, I think. I
Mm-hmm.
know some of like I mean, like I read them. Like I know the Pallies have like the shield one, and the Warriors have like the fucking Thunderclap one, and the Shadow Priests and whatever have the Void one. But I haven't really been reading any of the talents. I'm just kind of like waiting until I get into beta and then like looking into that stuff. So I know they have hero talents. I know the four zones and the raid is I think it's a spider raid. That's about all I know. Oh, and I know heroic week is week one now instead of mythic and heroic same time, which is awesome. Awesome change.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's just like I could care less about how it affects world first people. That is way more fun to me, in my opinion, than feeling the pressure to do Mythic Week One. Also,
Yep.
something we ran into in Amir Jasil was that the raid on normal and heroic was easy, and we cleared it really quickly. And then like Mythic was still too hard, so there was just nothing for us to do with our allotted raid hours. And we talked about this. Like I think moving forward, we should do splits, and I think with the skill level we're at now, that opens that option up a lot more, which
Yeah.
just and when I say splits, I mean just literally two groups. Like everyone has like an
One all.
alt, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and I actually think that'd be super fun, especially if week one you're not pressured to try to get into Mythic. Like
Yeah, because
I
that
always liked
was
heroic week because it's like kind of fun. You're getting like a warm up run for the raid and getting to experience it all without like the like the ultimate form of progression being a looming factor. And so I like heroic week a lot personally.
yeah, and at least this expansion, we ran into that problem every frickin' tier. We clear the first eight, we clear up to the last boss in heroic, and then we're always in like the conundrum of like, all right, well, should we just try to get AOTC or should we try to kill the first mythic boss? Like, what is easier?
Yep.
And I swear to God, every time we made the wrong choice of going to the mythic boss first instead of the
Yep.
heroic boss. Like, we wiped on Aranog, we wiped on Kazara, and we wiped on Gnarlroot. And it's like now we just don't have to worry about that. Like we can focus on heroic week. We can do up to like the last boss, and then if we want to do like normal, and then like, or if we want to do a split or whatever, and we don't have to worry about going to mythic because that shit's not coming out till the next week. So that's a. I mean, for me personally, I love it. Like it's such a good change going back to that.
Yeah, and even outside of trying to do splits, you're totally right. Like the first week, if you clear it all, you should just be able to sit there and try to kill, like get AOTC and get the last boss. But yeah, you
Yeah,
always have this looming question of like,
it's like, oh, do
okay,
we try to
well,
sneak in a first
efficiently,
boss like
yeah,
for
and
rank?
efficiency wise, like yeah, that's myth track gear. It's better stuff. Like it also is rewarding to kill a mythic boss. So it's like in the back of our heads always like, let's try to kill the mythic boss as quick as possible because it's like fun to do and you get better gear. But it's just nice when heroic week comes out, all you have to worry about is clearing normal and heroic and just getting through it all. And I think for us, or any guild that's around our skill range, you can actually, with how they've been tuning heroic raids this expansion, you can like actually explore the idea of everyone has two characters and now you get way more gear because every top end guild does that multiple times. They have like multiple split
Oh
groups.
yeah,
I'm not even saying top end like world first, like the top probably 200 guilds or even more now because I think it's more common practice. You can do splits, and as a 6 hour guild, it's even better when all you have to worry about is heroic because as long as it's not like a Castle Nathria attune version of heroic, then it's easy to do that. I just
yeah,
have, and everyone gets more gear. You don't have to deal with loot drama because there's way more going around. It's just way better.
yeah.
So
Cause
I'm
like
really happy they went back to
yeah, like
that.
picture this. It's like Wednesday. We cleared Tyndall or whatever, and then it's like Thursday. It's like, do we spend all day on Heroic Fire or like Mythic Gnarl Root? And now we can just like be like, all right, well Thursday we'll just do another clear of Heroic, and then we can just worry about the Heroic last boss. So yeah, super good change.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you know about the War Within?
Not a lot. I know same thing you do,
Yeah.
like hero talents. I know about this warband thing. I'm
Oh
not sure
yeah,
the
I forgot
extent
about
of
that.
how it's implemented. I'm really happy about that because um, love playing alts. I get really bored though. This expansion was probably the most alt friendly expansion they've made
I
since.
still don't even feel like it was that alt friendly though. Like
I mean, I think
technically
it
it is,
was.
but it's like,
Yeah, that's what I
bro,
mean.
you gotta run like like so many dungeons to get these crests and stuff. It's like they gotta figure something else out. But I mean, yeah, kind of with the warbands they are. I don't know if you saw this, but I think the tier pieces are warbound now. So like if you get like a token for like a priest shaman paladin, you can like put in your warbound and another character can use the tier piece, I believe. Unless I read that wrong.
That is awesome. And I
Yeah.
think where they missed the mark because they came out and explicitly stated in Dragonflight that they were not going to allow you to transfer crests. It was in season one actually when it was those primal infusion things. They came
Yeah.
out and said you are not going to be able to transfer those to your alts because we want the best way to gear an alt is be by playing the alt.
Hmm.
And I think that's a super naive approach because this is a almost it is a 20-year-old game now, and most people, especially like Mythic Raiders, have tried almost every spec in the game, and they have at least some familiarity of how to play it. Like I think their angle was that they don't want people running around who have no idea what they're doing that are like max item level.
Yeah.
But in reality, what they were saying is like we want you to play the game more and have to like grind on alts. But I would play so much more if I could just easily utilize how much time I've spent on my main to give power to my alts. And what I mean by that is like gear. And I think that's a great change to be able to even just like clearing raid a couple times, like pugging heroic on your main just so you can funnel stuff to your alts through the warband system is an excellent change because it's really hard to get into groups when you have a fresh level, whatever it will be 80. People don't want to take like bad alts when there's like chase items, so like really geared people are still trying to clear heroic just to
Yeah.
get stuff. So that's I think the best change they're making in this expansion. That's what I'm looking forward to the most is the warband system and how easy it will be to transfer, the currencies and gear and stuff from your main to your alt so you can play a bunch of stuff. I think that's awesome. Um,
Yeah. Super super awesome change. I mean, it only took them like 25 years to do something like that, but I mean like just a complete 180 like tonal shift from the beginning of Shadowlands to where we are now in like 2 years or 2.5 years, whatever it's been. It's like actually insane how different their like stance on things is now.
yeah, I completely agree. And I also think the one thing I want, and this is gonna be like a death take. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of miss like expansion borrow power systems. And so I know for this expansion, talent trees were considered the
Evergreen.
like in quote part like the yes, but it was like Dragonflight's equivalent of borrowed power, but they're staying forever, so it's not really borrowed power.
Yeah.
But they did have the same effect. Like you were getting a ton of tier sets and all these different systems incorporated into the talent trees. I don't want it to be to the length of artifact power or Azurite power level stuff,
No,
but
no, no. Think of this. Think of this, right? I actually don't think it would be bad if it was. I swear somebody said this. Maybe it was Death, but imagine you had your Heart of Azeroth necklace, but like it was just like account bound. Like if your main was level 50 neck, your alt was level 50 neck. Like it wouldn't be that bad, right?
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Or like your
And
artifact weapon, like you leveled it up on your main and your alts were like maybe only like 5% behind, or like actually just the same level as your main with your weapon.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is I don't think there was enough I feel OP this expansion
Oh,
because
definitely not.
after like besides reworks there just wasn't, and I think exploring ideas like how corruption was in the end of BFA or little things like the smaller enhancements to artifact powers and like what were those things called? They're like the equivalent of conduits for
Oh,
artifacts,
cat,
whatever those were
the
that you had to
Nebulae
like
Crucible.
yeah, like that kind of stuff, like just little ways that are like I don't hate borrowed power, and I think it's a fun way to change up how your spec plays naturally, because they clearly are, I guess season 3 and some specs in season 2, like the tier sets were really impactful on your rotation and how the spec played, but um I feel like borrowed power systems are actually a good way to enable new like play styles for specs and just give the players more power progressively throughout the tier. That makes it really fun, and I just don't think we had enough items or systems this expansion. And maybe I'm like it's like treading dangerous waters with asking them to do that more, but I think corruption's probably in terms of just how OP it was. The acquisition I know sucked, and having to do like the little nightmares or whatever they were called like every day was probably
Incursions,
not
yeah.
fun. But uh that kind of system I think is just cool, and it adds like a unique flavor to tiers that exist outside of like just your tier set. Because your tier set is very hit or miss, and obviously what's meta typically depends on what tier set's really good nowadays. Like what it has a pretty significant impact. But yeah, that kind of stuff I actually do miss, and I also think it adds a reason to play the game because there are times where I'm like in my head I'm like I'm in the mood to play WoW, but then I log on and I'm like there's nothing for me to do. Like I'm not gonna try to like depending on who I'm
Well,
pretending to be that
you're the
season,
type of
like plugging
person,
keys
yeah.
maybe or this and that, but I actually do kind of miss where there's like a way something that you kind of just do and it actually amounts to a reward to your character's power level. As long as it's not to the extent of like Azerite power, like I'm saying, or artifact power where it's like a continual grind and it's really annoying. Just having like as little side content to do because I feel like Legion was really good at that. There's just a ton of stuff outside of like the main rating. Like Suramar was awesome, and there was those little things you did in the tunnel that actually gave you rewards. Just stuff like that where you tie maybe it is kind of a mundane process, but it's giving you something to do in the game, and it's also increasing your character's power level. I think that stuff's good for the game.
Yeah, like, yeah, it is dangerous trope though. It's like, are we really gonna go do fucking tour gas every week? You know, and like I said, it wouldn't be bad if I only had to know one character though, I guess. Like, uh,
Also, I don't know why they don't like. We need another mage tower or something. Like that is so fun to
well, I
do.
think
Was so
that
fun in Legion,
I think the
and they need to bring
delves,
that back
I
somehow.
think the delves is what they want to do with that. So from what I heard, there's like 11 levels or something, or like 12 levels, and only like the first 8 levels like give rewards, and then after that it's like kind of for the prestige. And they said like the last level is like gonna be akin to like how the mage tower was, like maybe difficulty wise. It's just gonna be like a,
Mm-hmm.
a final boss type of thing that you have to figure out how to beat it. But it's like all prestige kind of shit. I don't know if you get like transmog only or like achievement or something, but yeah, the rewards stop at like level 8. So I mean, I'm hopeful that they can do that because yeah, like obviously the mage tower was so good they brought it back like in Shadowlands, right? So they definitely need
Yeah.
something to compete with that. Um, but yeah, no, I kind of agree. Like, you log on, nobody's like playing the game. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just get off. It's like I wanted to play, but nobody's kind of on type of deal. But yeah, even that last expansion, yeah, you're logging on, like, all right, nobody's on, but I guess I'll just like do my weekly chores. And then like somebody gets on because they have to do their shit too, and then you end up like gaming together. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the must if they're going to do a system like this again, like they did in Legion and BFA, is like unlimited catch up. And what I mean by that is if you miss a week or whatever, it's kind of like how crests work now or Valor worked in the past. Like it's just a growing cap, so there's an easy way for you to catch up, which also makes it easier for alts and stuff.
And make it
Um,
like increase incrementally each week how much more you get.
yes,
Yep.
absolutely. And like those systems, I do kind of miss though. In all honesty, I do kind of like
So,
talents become stale once the meta gets figured out and it's just suboptimal to play anything else. And tier sets are cool for the first 2 weeks until your rotation is learned. But having like an additional spice up each tier for like some borrowed power system that's not crazy. Because like the borrowed power of this expansion was, I think the only one was the helmet enchant. And
dude,
that
that's the
was really
shittiest
lame.
borrow power
Yeah,
ever,
the
man.
lamest
And
stuff
the ring,
ever.
the ring from the island, which was just as bad.
Honestly, more fun though
I,
to
I don't
do to
know.
get.
I hated it because I lost like 8% haste wearing it, and I just felt so slow casting. I mean,
Well,
it
no,
was.
no, I meant like the actual
Oh, the
acquisition and stuff.
acquisition?
Like
Yeah,
doing that
the
little
the
tunnel
caves
stuff
were
was
fun. Yeah, I like
way better
them.
than just a random
Helmet chant.
2 month long quest where you get a helmet
Yeah, you
champion
just
that
and
does
then you
0.9% of your damage.
yeah you do the quest, you hand it in, and then you get it right away. So,
Yeah, but
um,
I think it's just intuitive to an RPG game to kind of have like a semi grindy
grindy.
process
Yeah.
that you just do every once in a while, like that you can keep up with easily. That's not super punishing if you miss one interval of doing it. That adds power to your character. Like that's I feel like this expansion was kind of missing that thing, and I know it was awesome for cosmetic stuff and like open world stuff for those kinds of people who are into it, but that did nothing for your character. So there's no reason to do it for someone like me.
It is funny though because like just the different perspectives. Like Death says this expansion he like is awful because of that reason. Like there's nothing to do in the game. Like you don't have to like do any of that grindy shit. But someone like Demise has like this is like the best expansion ever. I just have to like log on and do my raid and like do my like vault if I need to. I don't have to like worry about doing
Mm-hmm.
any of that other shit. So it's like I don't know, different strokes for different folks, I guess. But it is funny, like at least in our guild, seeing the different opinions of the expansion. I mean, overall, I think it was a good expansion. I feel like I liked it a lot more in the beginning, but Um, I don't know. I feel like my opinion of it is kind of went down a little bit, but it's definitely not like the worst expansion ever. It's just like it's so-so, I guess.
I liked it. I still like it. I think Dragonflight
I think the raids were
is
like
overall.
also not that great.
Uh,
They're
yeah,
like they were
I think they
just
were good
okay.
across the board though.
They were
I
good.
think Vault, I
Yeah.
think Vault and Amir just are both good raids, and then Aberrus has a lot of good fights, but it's just obviously held down by the big three that made that
Okay, so
like
like
a way
none
worse
of these
experience.
raids were as bad as like Sanctum, but none of them were like as good as like Nathria or like Sepulcher, I guess.
Yeah, I do agree with that,
Yeah.
and I also think, um, yeah,
And I don't know if
but
I
I
don't
honestly
know
I think I'd
if
rather have this experience though in
really
terms of raid
I was
quality
just
over
thinking
like
that
Shadowlands.
would you rather take like a stinker tier sometimes that have like banger tiers like or would you rather than just be like safe and just be like, you know, just good? Like they don't ever like try to overachieve on some fights.
Well, I think the problem with them overachieving is that it usually just ends up being way too hard for the common
Yeah.
folk, and then it causes burnout really easily, which is why
Yeah.
they like shy away from doing it. Because even Tindril, we have a whole podcast episode talking about that. It was just like way too far into the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I guess the only reason to get at it is in the War Within, I do hope the raids are tuned similarly to how like Amir Just was minus Tindril. I hope they like keep this approach. I also just think they need to remove the idea of attempting to accommodate world first.
Absolutely, man.
They are never going to be able to outsmart them in terms of like getting around the game mechanics or like the halts in acquiring power that they try to do. And all it does, I think, is have a negative impact on casual players. So I hope they deal with that better. War bands are awesome. So really, I think at this point, it's just how everything is implemented because I think it could shape up to be a really cool expansion, and there's going to be a lot to do. Hopefully, even like this delve stuff, I'll have to look into it more. But a lot of the hero talents look cool. They seem like pretty OP too, so it'll be fun to have
Yeah,
like
that's
get to
one
play
thing.
those new
That's
things.
one thing I was like, dude, a lot of this shit sounds like super OP. Like I was not feeling this way about like Dragonflight at all. Like when I was like reading stuff about like beta and stuff, like I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm like whatever with the talent trees. Like I personally like I don't care one way or the other. Like I thought they were like cooler at first, but now I'm like, dude, I'm just like copying someone's fucking build half the time anyway. You know, I'm like too stupid to pick and choose on my own. Like, yeah, some dungeons I'll like run this talent instead of this talent, but at the end of the day, it's like I don't know. I guess they needed to do it, but it's not like that awesome to me, the talent trees. But I will say, like the hero talents, the stuff I've been like seeing, I'm like, dude, this shit sounds awesome. It sounds like super overpowered for a lot of specs and classes.
Yeah, I'm completely in the same boat. I feel the exact same way about it. The talent trees were really cool in the beginning, like, and having what was supposed to be flexibility felt cool, but then and by the end of the expansion, you realize you're changing utility talents ever so often, but depending on AOE or single target, you're almost always playing the same talents,
Yep.
and you're there is no flexibility in playstyles because even if your tree has enough to like have two drastic change or like playstyles, I think enhancement's a great example. They have like two completely different builds and it changes how you play, but since the first raid, you've only played one,
Yeah.
and so those nodes do exist, and you can in theory play them, but
It's just
no
not
one's
good.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not happening because it's
Speak
just way worse than the optimal build.
Speaking of like overpowered, you said earlier like you never like felt overpowered at all in the six mansion, right? Without like borrow powered
Hmm.
stuff. What's the last time like you felt overpowered? Like season 3 and 4 of Shadowlands, or because you've played Hunter
Yes,
and
because
Blood DK.
yeah, tier sets were so good across the board. I think obviously some specs just got kind of like they got the short end of the stick, but a lot of the tier sets just drastically played how you, or sorry, changed how you played the spec. I also think things like Survival Hunter and Destro were awesome because they were like they could not tune those specs because they weren't just broken like numbers
Numbers,
wise, but
yeah.
they were like
Fundamentally
systemically broken.
broken,
Yeah, like
yeah.
their mechanics from the tier were so good that you would have to nerf their damage by like 50% to take them out of like the situations they were super good in, which was keys like mass AoE. It was impossible to actually tune them. I think that's awesome. Legion was another example where they just did it across the board because they just continually were giving you more artifact traits and more of those thingies that increase the item level on your weapon and stuff and
Mhm.
this and that. And by the end of Legion, you had like tier sets, you had this massive artifact tree that was enhancing like a ton of different abilities and all that stuff. So like throughout Legion, I just also felt pretty OP. Especially, it's all relative too, right? Because I think the thing about Legion was like compared to previous expansions, the power gain over the expansion was insane, and like
Oh
specs just
yeah,
felt really
dude.
good because there was so much going on for them, and they were so OP because of all like the buffs to certain spells and stuff, and artifact abilities and this and that. And that's what I mean. That's what was just missing for me. This expansion was there wasn't enough variance in how I played the specs I played and this and that. Like I think talent reworks were the only way that happened. Like Havoc felt awesome after the rework because it just added a bunch of flavor to the spec and like it made it just better at a lot of things in combination with the tier set it got, where it played completely differently, but it was super strong,
Did
and
you
that was
feel
like
like
really cool.
overpowered though?
Yeah, in the beginning, like when
Yeah.
it came out, before they just started nerfing everything that made it so good.
Actually, Vengeance is kind of overpowered, at least in
Yeah,
dungeons.
same
Yeah.
same thing. Vengeance became the exact same way. Like I think in the beginning of the season there was some like not everyone knew if it was going to be the best, especially because Havoc was so good, and you typically don't want to class stack if you don't have to because of buffs in Mythic Plus.
Hmm.
But yeah, like Vengeance now even is still it's still the best tank by far, um, and that's OP for the wrong reason, honestly. Like it's just
Yeah.
bringing way too
It's not
much
like a
utility,
numbers
which is
thing.
kind of
Yeah.
lame. Yeah, and that wasn't good. But that's what I mean. Like the only times I was playing stuff where I was like, "This is so broken," was like a spec after it got reworked,
Yeah.
as opposed to like just because everyone was getting new cool shiny things. It was just like which spec did Blizzard pick to rework this tier that ends up being completely broken, or like adding with AUG and stuff. So that's what I mean. I just wish it was across the board. There was more things like that added a lot of power to specs continually, so it made it more fun to experience the different things. Because I'm even at this point now, which I haven't been since I guess from the time I played this game in Legion till Dragonflight. There's never been a point until this expansion where I'm like, what sounds fun to make an alt? There's just nothing that's like sticking out to me or like yelling at me like I want
I
to try
feel the
this spec out
same
because it's
exact
super
way,
fun.
dude. I feel the
Yeah, there's
exact same way.
just not that's what I'm saying. There's just not enough flavor in how specs play and what they're good
Hmm.
at this expansion, in my opinion, that made me want to go out of my way to waste multiple hours of my life gearing that character for what I know is actually going to be no reason, just for
Yeah.
fun.
Yep.
That's the point of the game. It's supposed to be fun, and there's just not enough of it.
Yep. I agree. I completely agree. I will say you didn't really like play BFA, right? Like the
No,
beginning at least.
I played the beginning, yeah, but that's it.
Oh, remember when you were like leveling from Legion? You had all your overpowered shit, then you hit level 116 and you just like lost everything,
Yep.
and you just felt so awful for like the 4 levels you were level. I feel like that's like what Dragonflight feels like sometimes. Like it's just like you have nothing, and
Yeah.
it's just like not as fun as it could be. And I am really hopeful that the hero talents are gonna bring that like spice back to a lot of the classes because like I said, from I haven't read a lot of it, but from like what I've been reading and seeing people talk about and like some of the clips, like it's just they seem like really like fun and kind of like overpowered, which is a good thing. I think people want to play strong classes, not like weak shitty classes.
Yeah, and I am pretty hopeful for the War Within, and this like going about. I guess the last thing we can talk about is not actually like the literal things in War Within, but the changing. We talked about it a bit earlier, but the changing of pace in expansions from
Oh,
and having like a continual story. What do you think that's like a good thing, bad thing? How do you feel
um,
about that?
I uh, so the story, you know, that's whatever. I think they just have like everything mapped out already, obviously, and they know what they're gonna do. To me, I mean, I think the lore in WoW is like super fucking cool. Like I could go back and watch like novels videos and like a
Hmm.
lot of it's super interesting, but I don't know. I just like haven't really cared about the story since we went to Argus and fucking Sargeras stabbed that sword into the world. Um, I thought
Same.
that shit was sick, but then after that, I just haven't like really paid attention to it. I do think it's good though. I like being on Azeroth. I like that they're going back to revisiting the sword. Because like a lot the coolest stuff in WoW is like to me at least is like the old god and like the Titan shit. Like I
Hmm.
think that stuff's really cool. So and it seems like that's kind of the theme they're going with. So I'm hopeful for that. But as far as like release schedule goes, I like the cadence of this as well, especially if it means we're not getting like Awaken season every expansion now. If we still get Awaken season even with this, and I don't know, I don't think it'll be that good, but I'm hopeful that the 18 month or whatever it is release cadence will allow them to like just do 3 raids and the expansion's like ready by the time the third raids ends. And I hope they don't like shorten any tiers, like they had to do with like Sepulcher kind of deal.
Yep.
Yeah,
Also, and tagging on to that, I agree with everything you just said. I'm not like I actually kept up with WoW's lore a lot, not from the games, but just like it's just fun to listen to
it
and like
is.
or even
Yeah,
read
it's really
about.
good.
So story wise, I hope that like what they're doing does make it more like I think the problem with the last few expansions is it's like the Star Wars sequels where there's just no clear idea of what they're about to do,
Hmm.
and then it just ends up being uh
It's like a mess.
just a huge mix and mess, and like Shadowlands
Bro,
just
like the
retcons all
jailer,
of
like
Wrath, which is like
bro.
yeah one of the most loved characters and storylines in the game's lore, and it's just because they have no consistent vision. So um, good approach by them storytelling wise, that's great. I do also think 2 year cadence is good. I think it'll get rid of all the lull periods. However, I don't want them to stop releasing content frequently. And I was talking to someone about this a couple weeks ago, but I also miss when they used to make like one off like and they did this in Legion and BFA,
The raids.
the one-off raids, like the
Yeah,
short,
like
like
two
three monster,
boss.
two boss
Yeah. Yep.
raids. Yeah, that would be awesome to bring back to spice things up in the middle of the season and like add some maybe OP items to them to like help with Mythic Plus or whatever, just making reclear easier. Um,
So
and then also and
So the
yeah, what?
problem we ran into that, well, I mean, we were like really, well, we were way worse back then than we are now, but like they released the last they just had to tune it right. Like they released the last one, the Crucible of Storms, in the middle of the Zara lore, and like we didn't have cutting edge yet, and people were like, well, I kind of want to do Mythic. We were not doing that. Those bosses took like for like 700 pulls from World First Guilds. Like, buddy, we are
Yeah,
not stepping in there. Like, if the tuning's fine and it's like at a point in the tier where it's like it makes sense to release it, I agree. Especially if like you have like an Emerald Nightmare kind of tier where like it's everything just kind of like falls over and like most guilds are done with like within like 2 months and you still have like 4 months left in the patch and they release it like by month three. I think that would be like super good for the game.
yeah, and also I think they could even explore um what would be cool to me is if they have the option to like queue into it could be an old end boss or whatever and it's retuned up. Not
Hmm.
like time walking, like it's scaled to your level and the mechanics are still there and stuff. Maybe they add some fun mechanics to it, like new ones. And even if it's just so like you can obtain the whole like the mythic transmog set or something, like but you can just like go so once the season's boring because you're just reclearing and doing nothing, and you can't even fill your raid times because like you're just reclearing and killing everything for guilds who are that good. I will never have that problem. But like it, even if you can do that, they just like add more fun one-off things
Hmm.
where like it could be for cosmetic gain, but it's still group content. Like what if you could redo like Argus or something and it's scaled up to whatever level 80 and like the mechanics are tuned up and they maybe like add one mechanic to it to make it more fun. Because I think that's like what one of the cool things that and I'm probably misunderstanding how it works, but like Final Fantasy has stuff like that where there's like these one-off ultimate bosses or whatever they're called that you can go and try to do,
Hmm.
and it's not. I think they actually drop gear too, but like you can also revisit old content really easily and just having ways to fill the gap and playability would be awesome because something we talked about in the last episode with Death was like how Titan forging made old content relevant because you still needed to farm it, which obviously has its pros and cons of just being completely RNG, and then also it's like not everyone enjoys having to do old
Yeah.
content, but I think if you make it even just purely cosmetic or you're adding one-off raids, it's just fun to have more content, more reasons to play, especially during lull times and stuff. And I think they should think about adding more like just kind of flavor stuff like that to the game because I think a lot of people just get bored of how the gameplay cycles panned out for the last three expansions of
Yeah.
you clear
Well,
Mythic Raid, then you're on farm, and then it's just a question of do you like doing keys or not.
the I mean they've been trying, right? Plunderstorm, which was really good. And
Yeah.
now they have this mop remix thing, so who knows? Maybe that's like something that they're just getting a feel for, like re-releasing old raids.
Yep.
Maybe that's some. Hopefully, that's something that they're just like kind of seeing how people react to, and maybe something in the future they could do.
Yeah, and I hope it wasn't just a flaw. Like all these new game modes are trying and like revisiting stuff in an interesting way, not just like classic way, is something that they're actually considering incorporating because um, that sounds like a great way to enhance like the end game experience and what options are available to you as a player once you've like cleared Mythic
Yeah,
to make the game still fun.
yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, we've been talking for a while, but last question: are you gonna play Kata Classic?
I never killed the Lich King, did you?
No, we only have a week to do it.
I hope Kyle's listening.
Yeah, that
Uh,
comes out next
That's
week, I
next
think, or like
week.
8 days.
I mean, I'll play it. Like everyone's gonna be playing it, right? You're
It
gonna
is
be
super
playing it,
easy to
right?
level in Kata. Yeah, I kind of forgot it was a thing, but
I
yeah, I
did
think I'm gonna
too.
play it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll play it if everyone's
The
playing it.
yeah, if we can get 10 people, that'd be fun. But
Oh yeah, 'cause
yeah,
kata
it,
rating is like the loot's the same, right? 25 and 10 man.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, I'll probably play. Also, I like kata. I feel like I played kata more than Wrath actually when I was in college when kata came out, and I played it a
Hmm.
lot like my freshman year and my senior year of high school. So I'll probably play it.
Yeah, and I think maybe I'll give before we wrap this up officially. There's one more thing we were going to talk about, but I think it'd just be a good idea and a sneak peek. I think we we started this honestly with a lot in mind to be like we can share our experiences. This turned into much more just our commentary on what we want out of the game and our guild's ups and downs and stuff.
Hmm.
But I think it like we'd be next episode. It'd be cool if we did like a review of everything that worked for us and didn't work for us in terms of
Oh,
becoming
that'd
a
be
better
good.
guild this expansion.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we've strayed away from like trying to make our experiences insightful, which is kind of like a big reason we wanted to do it. Because we think it'd be cool to like explore that thought process. So yeah, I know we have a ton of viewers, so you can let us know in the comments below if you'd be interested in that. But I think that'd just be fun to get at, like all the things we did right and wrong this expansion, and um, how people who are like us around our skill level or worse or even better could incorporate that, um,
Dude,
and
I
how we could get better
swear
with it.
we could do like a whole like 6 hour episode of just the fucking dumbest shit that happens to our guild. Like just like losing your main tank on the last end boss like twice, 2 tiers in a row, shit like that. Like, I swear that'd be good.
Yeah, but we can also just talk about how we dealt with that
Yeah,
and
of course.
all
Yeah.
that fun stuff. I think that that'd be a good thing to get back to. And since I don't think we're gonna have a lot to talk about
Yeah, I was gonna
gameplay wise
say
for the
it's
next
it's
like
kind of
five
like a
months,
lull time, yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So something for our massive audience to look forward to next time we do this is we'll talk
Lenny,
about.
Lenny, make sure you comment with what you want to hear from us in that episode for sure.
Yeah, definitely do, because
Yeah.
it's always helpful to have some extra eyes on what we're talking about.
Yep. With that being said, anything else or wrapping it up here?
No, thanks to all our beautiful listeners, especially Lenny, for tuning in. But we'll see
Yep.
you guys in either a few weeks from to talk about that, and then we'll see you in the War Within as a Hall of Fame guild.
Thank you to all 76 people listening. Yeah, everybody have a great night. Goodbye.
Be blessed.